that include the other two, or is that just the shingles?
One of them was for shingles, and I think there was another one for Lake, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Boyer.
Boyer shingles. Yeah. And some of that was paid for by insurance adjustment, so that and greenhouse repairs.
Some of this figure was, no, over and above this figure.
No. We got the insurance adjustment a long time ago already, so, yeah.
But the greenhouse is getting more or not?
Getting more.
No,
It's
that
got,
will
the
cover.
adjustment has come on that too.
That will cover pretty much putting all new cover over it.
Yeah, that's not done yet.
I don't think it's gonna replace, but it's been ordered.
Okay.
I don't know. if it's-
The shingling-
The shingling is done.
On the tractor shed and,
They did basically all the small sheds.
yeah.
One over here, which, I don't know if the adjuster even looked at when ahead and did it, because there was some damage, track shed, there's another, that's a big track shed, there's another little one down there, there's two of them out here behind the elementary, did all those in this one out here, over here, garbage, that one was done, so.
They didn't do the one on the north of the ag building, though, that garage.
They didn't do the garage, no.
Okay.
So what are the partitions in the locker room and bathrooms?
We put, wanted to put doors on them so that they would close. We had somebody to replace a couple of the partitions. They were rusted, so we got more privacy.
Not in the locker room?
Yeah.
but that-
Yeah.
Any other questions? Motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the financials as presented.
I'll second it.
Moved and second consent agenda, roll call. Mike?
Yes.
Alden?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Vicky?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Myself, yes. We are now at that portion of our agenda set aside for public comment. Each person wishing to address the board will be recognized by the board president. Also, each person wishing to address the board will allow only one opportunity to do so this evening. We request that you limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. We will advise you when that 5-minute time period has elapsed. Please remember, this is a public meeting for the conduct of current business of the Plainview Public School District. Offensive language, personal attacks, and hostile conduct are not tolerated. You should further advise that there is no legal protection for any comments that are made. With that said, any public comments would like to be made? Mr. Hall, go ahead.
It's kind of amusing to me, I guess. We got this 5-minute public comment period. And the president of the board looks her watch right away.
That's right.
And now that I got your attention, I guess I got about 3 questions for you. Number 1, do you read the paper? Number 2, do you believe the stuff in the paper? Number 3, what do you think about this 5-school merger deal now? Patty, nice to see you here. Missed the last 2 meetings. Can't imagine what happened since they've been gone. They amended the school driving policy. Very interesting. To me, anyhow, it's not be to you guys. Because you know you don't have to pay attention to me. Because I've heard it quoted kind of close to this last meeting. We fixed that before the next meeting. And we're gonna back the administration. Mike, I think you said that. It's very interesting to me. The last time I thought that I checked, from what little knowledge I have about this, these 2 people right here are at-will employees. Last time I checked, You guys were elected by the public to hire, fire, watch. The money's being spent here. The people are being hired. Oversee the kids, whatever your duties are. But it sounds to me like the tone is, we got elected, and we don't really care what the public thinks now, because we're gonna do what we want.
That is so far from the truth, so
Okay.
far.
Okay,
I resent that. I take
Okay.
that personally.
that's fine. I said that was my feelings. And the reason I say that is I have something back up. Put this 5-school deal up to a vote. Before you spend any more money or time. I challenge you to do that.
Okay?
Whatever the outcome may be, that's great. But that's the best test. Because all I've been hearing is how great this thing is from you folks. That includes all of you. You go to these meetings and say how great this thing is. And when you get just a little bit of resistance, yes, the press will leave. That's funny. That's almost laughable. Really, it is almost laughable. If the guy wasn't crying inside, he'd be laughing. I think there's some personal agendas going on here. Not necessarily just you guys, not necessarily you guys, but in the whole scheme of this thing, it ain't about the students. This school is the taxpayers and the student's school. It's not his school, it's not her school. And all you guys want to harp on is how great it's gonna be for the kids. Most of those kids can get a first year of college year done in high school on the internet. And I can name people who've done it. We're a different age. I don't know much about it, but I hear about it. So when you guys say you're gonna hire college type instructors, and you're gonna benefit ag, and you're gonna get technical type people, to get these people to be ready for jobs around here, that's a hogwash. They can do it a different way. Why you guys want to merge this one, but the other districts, I don't have a clue. I really don't. And when I get down here, I'm probably gonna go to Neely, because I got called by some people down there and said, Doug, you really should come down there to the meeting, the next school board. We think that they're gonna try. We think they're gonna try to get this $10 million bond going. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else? Kim?
Do I have to stand up or can I just sit?
Speak loud.
Okay, I will. I guess I come here too because of the school merger and stuff, and I guess I just have more questions. How does this all proceed? I mean, do the people vote on if they want to merge, and then they have to vote on a bond, and how does it work if one of the schools drops out? Is the whole thing done? I mean, I'm just a little curious on that a little bit. And I guess the reason why is, I differ from Doug a little bit and stuff. I see some real positives on this. I mean, you guys are really thinking outside the box, and I think there's some really good things that can happen. To be honest, there's a few things I'm concerned about, yeah, but my opinion's maybe a little different than a lot of other people. I don't have kids in school anymore, that affects my opinion. I'm 55 years old. If you guys merge and I don't have a job, I'm okay with it. You know, that to me is not a big thing. I guess the bigger thing that concerns me, and I don't know if it's true or not, is that I'm hearing that just the school boards themselves are going to vote on this or not. And I understand, you know, we elect you guys, and you guys do a great job. Okay, it's a lot of time, it's kind of a thankless job, you know, it's not a great thing. But to be honest, none of you guys were voted in on this subject the way it is now. Okay, so to have true democracy, maybe we need to go through a few votes, maybe we need a lot more information out there. You know, it's not that legally maybe you can't vote on this and go forward. There, you know, if it is, big deal. That's the way it is. But I compared CVA, which Mike and all of them I'm sure know, just went through a huge merger with another UFC cooperative. They went from being $1 million company to now being $1 billion company, which sounds really huge. In the scheme of things, they're a lot smaller than Helena or School or a lot of other places. But both boards felt very strongly that it made them more competitive for the future. They had a lot of meetings, they sent out a lot of flyers to their patrons to encourage them to vote for it. One interesting thing that we heard, though, is the fact that I don't know about this UFC board, but the CVA board, according to the way their bylaws were written, they didn't have to let the patrons vote. They could have gone ahead and done the merger on their own because of the way it was written. They felt very strongly that was not the way they wanted to proceed. UFC their board felt the same way. They wanted to put this up to the patrons because they felt it was their cooperative. As it turned out, I think it was like 78 or 80% from both sides voted to go ahead with it. And I guess that's kind of where I come from. I mean, my personal thing is I want you guys to keep on going forward on this and see what it's all going to do. I want to see the whole picture of it before I make up my mind. But I'd feel better if everybody was getting a chance to get their voice heard. You know, and it's not that you can't do it. If you can do it, if that's the way the law says, that's fine. But maybe you need to ask yourselves, should we do it this way? The idea of maybe, I'm assuming the other boards have got 6 or 7 people too, and there's 5 boards, so maybe 35, 40 people making a decision for everybody. That gives me a little bit of EBGBs there. And that's just personal stuff. So I guess that's my only comment there.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Moving on to discussion items. Review board policy 503.02.
Okay, 503.02 is a very short policy, basically that we are required, we will keep attendance records of each student. Sometimes this becomes an issue, sometimes, you know, students miss too much school, that type of thing, but it's our responsibility to do that. There's a lot of, it's becoming more and more important because of the data that they put together, you know, the State Department on attendance and those types of things. We've been required the last 2 or 3 years to submit attendance records every month, and now, I used to have to do that every month, and now Jan does it through the NSSRS system, that they keep track so that they're gathering data. And what the commissioner has done the last 2 years is compare, or take that data and take a look at it, and there's a relationship between how kids score on tests, how many days they're in attendance, and the more days they miss, the lower they score. And so the attendance is really, it is an important factor. So I guess a little off the subject of what this says, but attendance is very
And just do those 503.
The student absences, excused, basically, kind of sets up the parameters for what is excused and unexcused absences. And again, this is handled by the principal, and to try and be, fair on this, consistent with it. You always have different situations arise, but, as fair and consistent as you can possibly be. What is excused, what is unexcused, those types of things. The next one, 503.05, student release during school hours. Basically, students are expected to be in school unless they are, during the school day, unless they are dismissed. The parents write an excuse, come and get them, ask them to leave. or if, something happened, they have to have permission of the administration. Then the homeless children and youth, 1503.09, this is one that we probably, although we don't deal with it a lot, I think there's a tendency in some schools you have to deal with this more and more with a lot of students moving around. I think we mentioned earlier this last year when we had our audit on our title programs, one of the things they brought up, matter of fact, we changed some wording in the handbook that dealt with this, because the definition, what they think a homeless student is, if we have a student move in and they are, could be, living with a grandparent, that grandparent doesn't have guardianship, they can be considered to be homeless, and that's a little bit different kind of philosophy than we've dealt with in the past. So, but again, this is just about homeless, what is considered to be homeless students, how it's defined, the residency and those types of things. And it's pretty, I think, pretty common policy. I think one of the things here, as I read through with the immunizations, we require all students to have the immunizations. And it basically says, the homeless students, we're going to take a look at that situation. We're going to try and be as lenient as we can to get these kids in school and keep them here. And that's one of the things we really need to do, is see that the kids are in school. So talks about transportation and the different thing, records. Sometimes it's hard to get records catching up with these kids. They moved around a lot, or so we do everything we can to get them in school and keep them in school.
Next discussion item is for discussing high school start down. We'll start on 5 school committee.
Yeah, I guess we need to do.
Did you ever get minutes out on the last meeting?
What's that?
We've got minutes on the last meeting. Minutes, I think.
Did I send them to you? I don't think I did. I'm sorry. I posted them on the website there on the table. I will get you copies of them. I apologize for that.
Yep.
Before we go into the 5 school, I just wanted to clarify something a little bit. In the paper, Brooke had written a statement about receiving the agenda and evidently thinking that something should have been added to that, and that I did not respond to him. I just wanted to make sure that I did not shirk responding to him. I had written a note to the board members, that I was in Boston. I did check my email on Monday afternoon late. I did not check it on Tuesday, and I checked it again on Wednesday, and by then, I think it would have been to the printers, I believe. So I did not try to avoid responding to him or anything. So as far as the discussion on the 5 school, one thing I will start off with, I'm sure you're all aware, I did send out a note, letter to the board, a copy of the complaint that Mr. Curtis has filed, feeling that we are in violation of the Open Meetings Law. We've contacted, I've contacted the schools, our school attorneys, I think the other schools have. We are preparing a response to that complaint. That response has to be into the Attorney General's office by August 29th, and then we'll see what the Attorney General says about it. So, beyond that, a couple of the items that we wanted to discuss tonight, I'm just going to kind of go through these and let board members, people on the committee and that, chime in and go from there. At the 5 school committee meeting, the last one was held, we talked about opening the meetings up to the public. That's something we thought we needed to bring back to the board for discussion tonight. Not necessarily a vote, but what's the general feeling of the board? We did talk about, we're going to go ahead with this plan. At some point, there's going to have to be a decision made whether it's going to be a 7-12 or 9-12 facility bill. Want to get input from board members at this point in time. Not that a decision has to be made, but just any thoughts you may have on that. It's been brought up about a survey of the district patrons. We did talk about that a little bit. And we can come back to that. Tim had mentioned the vote of the people. That was discussed, what's going to be, how that's going to be handled. It's going to be a vote done with the boards. I would offer at this time, we discussed that some of that private committee meeting. There's no decision been made how it was. I happened to run into our school attorney at Administrator Days, and as I visited with him, he told me a few things about how this can all go about that I wasn't aware of, petitions and some different things with that. So, I think it's really paramount that at some point we get an attorney on board, to represent us so that we know everything that there is with this. There are different ways we can do it, and what might be the best way to do it. And until we get some legal assistance on that, we're not in probably position to, go too far with that discussion. We talked about August 27th as being a date for the next 5-school committee meeting, and that would be at Creighton. I think that started goes at 6:30, I think, at the same time. So, and also another thing that was discussed about having a possible joint committee meeting of all the boards again. We did talk about maybe trying to do that, maybe between the fall and the winter sports seasons. One of the dates that's been brought up is November 12th. You might check your calendars with that. We've done a little bit of checking. I think some people that we'd like to have in attendance and maybe be able to talk to the boards about some of the potential things we can do with this. Have that date available. John Spots from the NESB, School Boards Association, indicated he would be willing to come out and talk to Marcia Herring from the school board, maybe come out and facilitate that meeting. Corey Epler, who people who are on the committee, I think talked at the last meeting, and he has a lot of good information about career and technical things that we can do. I think look at see if he would be available. I think Dr. Chips from the community college was a night that he had available. So part of that meeting would be to have some information, those people talk and give some information, which I think would be valuable for all the board members to hear and the public to hear. So, with that, kind of open it up to the board members on the committee, which we'll talk about. We need to really probably talk about open it up to the public. One thing, thoughts, anything on that you want to bring up this time? I think we had Krista and Bob and Mike, I think was at the meeting.
One thing we talked a lot about at the meeting, I felt, was, again, how to get the people, get information out as many ways as we can. We talked about that would be a good reason to open this up to the public, to be another way for people to get the information as they come to meetings. There's been a lot of talk about secret meetings. My opinion is, we came together as a board, we didn't know each other. We maybe knew a name, we maybe knew a face, we maybe didn't know a guy from Adam. And it took a while for us as a committee to get used to each other, to get used to speaking up to each other, and feel each other out on where they stood. Were they for it, were they against it, was this guy totally against it, this guy for it? And it just took us all a while, I felt, to get comfortable on this whole thing before we open it up to the public. Because the last thing we wanted is for a bunch of people to come and take, we're not professional speakers. We don't want them to come and take what we say in a different way than the way we mean it, and put it in the paper, and have everybody on this committee clam up and not say anything, and we get no discussion anymore. So, that isn't the way we planned it, and why we haven't let people in, but I really feel like we needed that time as a group to get to know each other. And we feel now that, it's time to get more information out to people and open it up. That's kind of what I got out of it.
That's about the only things we have is a few consensus things, because with all these things that we're being accused of doing, and all these decisions we're being accused of making, and all these conspiracies that are around, I don't know where they are, because I haven't seen any of them. We're just getting together, kind of both sessions, to see what everybody thinks. And if you have that open to the public at the start, again, we had to get to know people, but You just say things off the top of your head, and then all of a sudden, again, if that was in the press, I mean, you can't have those kind of sessions, in my mind, and get any ideas out. And I think now we're at the point where I think everybody's ready to open it up to the public. I think it would be like a school board meeting, that will still have discussions and everything. And if the press is there or anybody wants to be there, they can be there, but they're not gonna be able to have any input into it at the time. Is that kind of the idea that you guys got from the discussion? I don't know. I'm for opening up to the public.
I have been for it to be open to the public for the last 2 or 3 meetings, and so I'm openly 100% behind letting patrons and people come in and hear what's being talked about.
I'd like to have another public meeting.
And that's what we're talking about, like November 12th, was trying to, well, that would be all the
I mean,
boards
I,
together.
just
All
our
the
school,
boards.
our,
And that-
our,
we need to do
our,
that. Yeah.
District,
our district,
and leave it open to
and leave it
the
open.
public.
Absolutely. Anybody have any questions?
Well, you can structure it on a different, you know, I mean, similar to what the legislature does at that point. You could get people then to come in and give testimony for and against or something, and virtually have some sort of structure there so that you don't get into this big debate at that time.
Right.
But let them, you know, Kim give her opinion. I mean, the 50 people sign up and say, this is why we're for it and this is why we're against it. And that's the way America works. I mean,
Sure.
and we as a board decide. I mean, and there's gonna be people for it and there's gonna be people against it, just as you're seeing now. I mean, that's just the way it's gonna be. So, but you gotta get those people there. I mean,
Right.
you know,
That's why I think if we open it up, have our meeting first, before we have a 5 school, then we'll get some kind of consensus about, like you said, grant like legislator, what, people speak in X amount of time.
the biggest concern I have, unless I'm missing something, the camera's on, but Marilyn and I are going off here in about 4 or 5 meetings, and you guys, the 3 of you put a tremendous amount of time on. We don't have one of the school board candidates in the room, I don't believe.
And there's 3 more of us that could be off before the decision's even made, whether we're gonna do it or not.
Yeah.
Wait, and Chris is up for election. I mean, you could have 3 new school board
Yeah, 4,
members on here.
yeah.
I mean, we're getting comments that we're hiding things, and you're gonna have, for sure, 2 new board members, possibly 3. I don't wanna scare, I don't wanna scare the people up, and I'm just telling the people that are in here criticizing the board, you will have a different board to criticize, and I'm a little bit frustrated. And yet because it takes a lot of time to put into this board. I mean, you guys have doubled meetings here for the last 8 months now, and that's not counting, other committee meetings. And as far as the committee structure, that's one of the committee structures existed for a long time. And it is so that you can have open comments, among, and I don't know, I've liked it, but this is a different setting, putting these 5 schools together. It's a challenge, but, back on the state level of it, I don't know, again, if any of you've been watching it, they're studying it at the state level, and it's been on, you can go on public television and watch what some of they put out, And the one number I always think is backwards, but, I don't know, these kids only spend 20% of their time in school, of their school age, or they're only actually in the school 20%, and I know Bob said, well, we need to lengthen the school day, but, in other words, their education comes outside of the school, and, now, is that off of where the school merger is, but that comes your extracurricular activities and things like that, and that's what broadens that education, if you have those kids have more opportunities in those, whether it's the FFA or whatever, but at some point, if your school dwindles enough, you're not gonna offer those extracurricular activities, you just simply can't. We're presently at, if I looked in the paper, we got 37 full-time employees, I believe. I added them up, Neely was similar, and we're 300 kids. 320 something, I mean, so we got, employee for every 4 or 5 kids, and that's not counting custodians, bus drivers, you can correct me, Mr. Alter, on that, but I'm just telling you, we've got 50-plus people hired in this district to educate 320 kids, and yet we want perennial involvement, and I just told you they only spend 20% of their time in here, so it's up to the parents to do some educating here besides, so these kids got a lot of personalized attention, and to me, that's a high number, but you have to have so many people to have a structure of a school.
Or you can't offer any class.
Yeah, you can't offer any class, I mean, you gotta have that many, because that's the thing we've been frustrated, we've discussed it over and over. You can't just have one science section, and the kids, they're not gonna get it, because they won't got only X amount of time in school, so, it's a challenge, I mean, but, anyway, I'm rambling on here. Oh, there was a couple things, just there was comments. You know, you're not gonna vote on a building unless the districts are combined, because that typically comes from a bond issue, which is a public vote. You know, the difference is, the boards, the 5 boards, correct me if I'm wrong, we could vote to merge. If we believe we have the best, we could vote to merge the districts. But we're not gonna build a building without a bond issue.
So how can you merge, and then if they vote out the bond issue, and you stay with your schools, then you gotta bust up your district again?
No, you just have to structure the facilities accordingly. No different than what people do now. If they vote for a bond issue and, you know, it's voted down, then they have to, the superintendent has to figure out how to get the building into code, or if you don't have enough
But I
classroom
thought you
space.
said we'd be down to 1 board before the bond issue came out.
I would think that would be
But if it
altered.
doesn't pass, then you gotta go back to 5
Well,
boards again.
See, I think that's where an attorney, because I think there's a way that can be worded, that you can do a bond vote, but it's contingent for them, combined, it's contingent upon the passage of the bond and those
Okay.
types of things.
It'd be contingent
Yeah.
upon the merger
Yeah.
or whatever. But,
But that's where an attorney is, thinking all that stuff, that wording and stuff.
yeah, I was just making a point of certain things we can vote on as a board, but, you know, that we can't. I mean, I think everybody's aware, you know, we have the thing in there, if it's over $5,000, he can't authorize, we have to vote on it, but we don't have to go to the public. But I forget where the separation is. Obviously, if it's new buildings, it's in the, but there's some, we have to have a resident vote or whatever on it if it's.
Unless you build a building that's small enough, you can pay for it out of your building fund and something like that, I don't think we're talking about that, so.
Yeah, well, in fact, I guess now that you mention it, some of the districts did that the last couple of years where they were able to get those loans, low-interest loans for building improvement, and they didn't have to have a bond issue on those. But anyway, I'm sorry, I got rambled.
So do we wanna vote on whether this board wants to open it up? I mean, we kinda talked of doing, each board doing that.
No.
It's not an action item. I think general consensus is from listening is, I think probably the board, which sounds like everybody pretty much agreed.
But you'll be legally told one way or the other anyway, won't you?
What's that?
Won't you be legally advised one way or the other, or?
Depending on the opinion of the Attorney General, we're gonna know one way, but I don't know when that opinion is gonna be rendered either. I have no idea. I just know we have to have our response in by August 29th. How long it will take after that, I have no idea. But, you know, that doesn't mean, and the discussion, as we said, was anyhow to open it up at this time. So.
There's no decisions made in those meetings anyway.
Right.
No.
All it
There's
is
been no
is,
decisions made anyway.
No,
So,
all it is
so the
discussion.
thing that would happen is if it was illegal to have that meeting, then they would declare the decisions invalid. Well, there aren't any decisions.
No.
So there's nothing to declare invalid.
Okay,
Anyone else?
We wanna talk about the junior high school.
7-12, what was that discussion about, 7-12, 9-12?
Because we've talked about that for 2 meetings and we've gotten nowhere. Nobody has hardly any opinion about it. I mean, it is, are basically undecided, so.
These meetings are kind of, it's like, why do we keep having these meetings?
Yeah. Well, you can't make any
Because you
decisions.
can't make any decisions,
Yeah.
you know? I I mean, with consensus things, you know, but.
This item of the 7-12, 9-12 is probably gonna be one of the biggest things to get resolved, because it affects so many things. It would affect building, it affects so much to do with transportation. What are your transportation needs going to be, how long kids are gonna be in buses, you know, those types of things, how much shuffling kids back and forth, it'll make a big difference. So much, right?
Parents are gonna have to do, they could have kids in 3 different schools.
Yeah, right. You've got your facility needs, you know, having, if you're gonna do it with, the junior high, 7th and 8th grade, that's not a part of the 9-12 complex, and you've got, how are you gonna manage those facilities? Also, you've gotta take a look at staff, because you have staff that are gonna be teaching maybe at the high school and the junior high level, you got staff are gonna have to move. It's just a lot of different things that are intertwined with this decision, and like I said, it's one of the biggest things that's gonna have to be wrestled through and something, you know, come up with at some point. It's just a huge item. So if anybody's got any really thoughts one way or the other, you can take back to get something moving, you know.
Well, like Bob
As an
made-
educator, 9-12, I guess that just makes more sense to me when I think about the age difference, especially between a 7th grader and a senior. I always thought the 9-12 buildings looked way better than any other combination. That's my personal educator opinion, for what it's worth.
Well, you can also design it so they're separated.
Yeah, yes, you could.
Bob made the comment at the committee meeting about utilizing our existing facilities for the junior high, and I agree, it'd be great if we could do that. But the thing, all the negatives I see to go against those positives, like you said, moving teachers, the busing would be horrendous. I don't know how you'd have to have a whole fleet of buses, and especially if you move them to 2 schools. And then you're back to, okay, are you willing to give up your junior high to another town? There's a lot of schools aren't willing to do that. You got the sports issue again, you know.
It's a hard one.
Yeah,
Actually, the sports to me is straightforward, because as our numbers drop, we need to work with somebody.
well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
That's
Yeah.
the line thing.
That's a positive for putting it in
Yeah.
our school.
Yeah.
Because we've got this
Teams.
class coming up with 9 kids in it and 2 girls in it. What a poor girl, I mean,
Right.
maybe neither one of them wanna do any sports, but
And the other thing is, like I said, you could have a parent that's got a kid up there in high school, a kid that's here in junior high, and a kid that's in Osmond in grade school,
yeah.
you know? And I don't think that's a good situation either. So to me, I think, you know, another bad thing about it is if your classes shrink, then you got a building that's not full, and you can't move up, you know, the junior high. But to me, that's the way to go, is to put the junior high up there right away.
For efficiency,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it makes more sense, because then you don't have to hire so many teachers. Then you're gonna have classes of 25 instead of having junior high classes with essentially 10 maybe,
Yeah.
if there's one section of it.
So that's, back to the legislature, I mean, that's one of Kate Sullivan's comments, I mean, we have all these structures out in the rural community, and they're not being utilized. So we're not, and that's our debate here, is as we shrink those numbers, we're not using our facilities to work. And, yeah, you will have to give up someplace, but.
I mean, personally, myself, I'm still on the fence about this, whether 7 through 12 or 9 through 12. And just, I mean, since we did kind of talk
positions. I can sit back and say very little if I want to. You know, I read in the paper, and I'm going to bring this up. I read in the paper, we bash the superintendent because he is doing something he shouldn't be doing. And I know, Mr. Alt, you didn't want me to, but I have to. that's not okay, because people don't know the facts. I agree with Bob Green, when we go to those meetings, good Lord, if somebody wants to take my spot, feel free. I mean, we aren't really getting much accomplished at that point, and I have never said one way or the other. I think discussions are a good thing. I think they are doing a fantastic job of just leading discussions, saying what they want to say, and not feeling like somebody's going to attack them at these meetings, and really nothing has been decided. I am going to tell you that. Nothing has been decided at those meetings. These people are doing a fantastic job of listening to one another's ideas and bouncing those ideas off. It is hard to sit here and do what they are doing.
I've been on school boards before.
I know, and I'm just, it's a very
And I was
difficult,
a
it's
teacher.
very emotional, and, you know, you have pride in your school, and you have pride in your town, and it is very difficult, and I can tell you that I've never heard one person say in favor or not in favor. And they may have given you that impression, and I'm sorry that they did that, but I don't think that I've ever heard one person say that this is what we need to do. I think they're all very much in favor of saying, let's research it, let's research it. And we're doing a lot of that.
Well, then I came home with a different opinion.
Well, and I'm sorry you did.
When I went to the meeting in place of Bob, I mean, I came home and I thought, what a waste of my time. I mean, I was just shocked, because I thought there would be some important, pertinent, and it was nothing. But what sits in the back of my mind is Jim Scheer's bill last year that he introduced to the legislature, that any school district less than 650 patrons must consolidate with 2 other nearby schools within 2 years. Now, that bill did not pass, but you don't think it's not going to be presented again?
It wasn't
Again and
consolidate.
again.
It wasn't consolidate. That was the whole point of the bill, was they didn't ask for consolidation. They asked for sharing and working together and aligning your schedules. We talked about that here, because that was my question about it. How did this go when it was consolidation? I have one other comment, if you give me a minute.
Go ahead.
Everybody keeps saying the paper and the facts as if I'm not sitting in the room and you don't actually have a question for me. The things that I run and the complaint that I made were made from your minutes. They were not made because I heard things at meetings and heard you make decisions and heard you make votes. They were from the minutes that Jeff Jensen wrote and all the superintendents approved. So if you want to challenge the facts, you could look at your own minutes or on the website that you created that says decisions we have made with 12 or 13 things on the website. You could look at that if, after my complaint, it had not been changed so that it doesn't say all these decisions have been made, like it did prior to my complaint. So if you want to argue facts, and you want to argue submissions, and you want to argue decisions, I would argue under the open meetings law and the public meetings laws, when you take a straw poll by asking everyone in the room what they think and their consensus, that is a vote. And the legislature agrees with me. And the laws of Nebraska agree with me. You might have your attorneys, and that's fine. The ones that I work with, that work for the Press Association, that deal with these all the time, agree with me. So I guess we'll just have to find out. But please don't talk about me like I'm not here.
Okay, that's fine. You had your chance at the beginning of the meeting to talk.
If the president would like to ask me to stop,
So do
she
it
can.
then, don't do it now.
Would you like to kick me out of this one? I can leave now if you want me
You can
to.
leave if you want to, but.
Okay,
but
I choose not to.
No,
Thanks.
that's fine. But you had a chance to editorialize before. I
Don't
don't wanna listen-
vilify
I don't
me
wanna-
as,
Write it.
don't vilify
Write it
me.
in paper.
Owning the newspaper, do not vilify me for giving the public their right to say something. Paul Spots is his own person. If he wants to
I don't
write
wanna
something,
hear it anymore.
he can write it.
Okay.
That's part of the reason we're questioning letting you in. You said
But
that
don't
we made,
question
just
it.
hear me out.
Okay.
And we printed that we made a decision. Okay, maybe we should have printed, we agreed upon. Maybe the words were a little bit
That's-
wrong,
that's a
so you
decision,
took it
right?
one way. So, yeah, maybe that's what we said, but necessarily isn't
The
100%
only
fact.
thing on
And
this,
when you come in there and you say Mike Sauser said he's gonna do this, it's probably gonna be the end of, and it's not what I meant.
I can't help that. I
I know,
can't read your
but that's
mind.
why we have.
Don't make
to-
me the evil person because you don't know what you're saying.
I'm not saying you are, I'm saying the press.
Okay.
I'm
The
saying,
press.
I'm saying that I'm not a public speaker and every word I say might not be the
Okay.
right word I mean.
Thank you.
That's
We're
where you're
moving
gonna
on.
take.
Our first action item is to discuss and approve on second reading board policy 502.015.
Okay, board approved on first reading last month this policy, and asked for a change for the wording so that it would be for participation in extracurricular activities, that a part-time enrolled student who wanted to participate in an activity would have to provide the school with a copy of the curriculum for at least one course being taken at home, and the grades from that course be made available to the principal at his or her request. And that wording is included, and when you get to the last paragraph of that policy and extracurricular activities, that's basically the second sentence of that paragraph. I hope that says now what the board asked. I think that's the only thing I changed on it. I think we were okay with, that would be like, and we also talked about, NSAA being different than, say, if they want to participate in bands. If they want to participate in activities, then they would need to meet those requirements. Does it look okay to what you want?
Okay, with that said, motion please.
I want to talk about it a little bit
Oh,
longer.
okay.
I don't have any problem if someone wants to homeschool their kids, that's fine, but I don't think that I think when you vote to do this, you make it easier for them, and so this encourages more homeschool education. And that's fine if you want to do that, but I don't, we have all these facilities, all the things that we spend all of our time here for. And we'd like to have control over the students that we have. I think we have less control with this. And I think if you vote for this, then you're encouraging more homeschool education. And that's why I don't want them to be able to participate in extracurricular activities within homeschool, if they're not a full-time student here. I think it encourages. Any other ideas?
I agree with you on that part of it. My opinion, I guess, is still back, I'm looking at the kid. I think you're looking at the parent, what the parent decision makes for their kid.
I'm looking at school.
Okay, you're looking at the school.
I've thought it over a lot, Bob, and really I come back to the fact that we're a public, if we were a private school, I may actually, support you more on it. But in a public situation, it seems like, and yet we have that control. We could go here and say, they're gonna have to be full-time. But as I watch them, I'm pretty sure in Norfolk, now that there's kids from Wisner that partake in Norfolk swimming program. They're full-time, and maybe they're not full-time, I don't know. But I know they attend Wisner's school, but there's no swimming program there, so Norfolk allows them to swim.
That's a sharing thing,
Yeah. So, and I think that's right, and under a public scenario, somebody from Plainview, if they wanted to go to the swimming program, and they wanted to be in Norfolk Public Schools swimming program. So the challenge is if they're homeschooled partly, but you could be full-time, I don't know, I guess it's back to me looking at the change in education. I understand what you're saying, except for the fact that we're still just a public institution. We're not, we have to allow all education.
we have to by law allow it.
Yeah.
But not on extracurricular, we don't.
Well, yeah, that's, I don't know.
I think it just encourages more.
Yeah.
I don't know how, I don't think parents make their decision to homeschool their kids based on what our extracurricular activity policy is. I think that's a more personal choice that's made before they even look at the rest of what's, you know what I mean? That they make that choice and then they say, okay, how can this choice fit best with public school?
Right,
They
well,
wanna
that'll
do it
be-
part-time too, I don't know. I don't think it's gonna encourage people, because I don't think they're gonna think, oh, I could keep my kid home, and I don't know. I think the whole homeschool thing is a very personal choice made at a very private level, And if they still wanna have their kid in our schools, and we're a public school, I think we should allow them to be in whatever they wanna be. That's-
And we are putting a limit on, have to be at least,
So
Yeah, they have to be here part of the time.
yes.
So half a day they have to be here, is that?
Yeah, just 4 periods.
4 periods.
4 periods they have to be here.
And then they've got
And then one more class.
one more class report on it that they're taking
Yeah.
at home.
But they're not gonna graduate from here. They're gonna have to get
Right,
a GED.
and that's part, if they don't receive a diploma, if they haven't met all of the requirements,
They haven't met
which
our
they would not probably do that.
So is there any way that you would know whether they're passing that class that they're reporting on from home?
It said,
So that
there's-
can
they
get
have to
graded.
show the grades.
Yeah,
They
they
have to show
But
the
the grade
grades.
is just given by the parent, so they can give them whatever they want. If they want them in
You'll
ball,
have
they
an idea
can.
at least how they're doing it, I guess.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
that-
you gotta trust the parents.
Yeah.
Well, then.
But what I was getting at as far as if they couldn't participate because their grades were down, that grade would be one of the grades you would, because if they're failing, 2 grades, they can't participate for that week. So you would accept that grade if they would say they didn't pass that grade?
I would
That would be
think
one
you
of the two.
Quite honestly, not, knowing the reason most people homeschool, and my wife would be in that, we would be in that situation. I mean, that, we would be using that as.
Threat to them.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
assassins, so you
I mean, I brought it up last time about cell phone use. I mean, we usually put more restrictions on than
Right.
what the school does.
But that's why I'm asking that
Yeah.
they do use that grade.
Or would.
Yeah, it's part of the grade.
It's the motivation for them to accomplish their own, you know, the parent, if they're following through, and I think most of them will.
I think for me, and I understand Bob totally, I totally get that, but I think in order to help a student become more rounded and kind of, you know, deal with today's society, I think letting them attend extracurricular is good for the child.
Any other discussion? Then I would entertain a motion, please.
You want to do these together, or you want to do separate? I wrote the sample motion, I think, for both, but it doesn't mean we did do them in
Well,
different.
there are 2, okay, yeah.
Do them separate.
Well,
Okay.
okay,
All right.
separate, okay. Okay, I'll make a motion on the second reading to pass 502.015.
I move that we pass board policy 502.015, full-time and part-time enrollment.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, Alden,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Vicky?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Bob?
No,
Myself, yes. Next is, board policy is 30202, right?
This one, superintendent contract.
Yep.
Contract renewal. Again, this one was discussed last month, and I think it was asked that the wording be changed. This is in the second paragraph. I think one would be added, the board shall publish in the local newspaper a copy of the contract for amendment. I didn't want it just to be put on the school website, so that wording was put in there.
I'll move to accept second reading board policy 30202.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call, Bob?
yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Vicky?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Alden?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Next item is discuss and approve on the second reading board policy 406.02, certified employee.
Okay, if we could maybe take these as a group. These were all discussed last month, approved on first reading. The certificated employee qualifications, recruitment and selection is very similar to the support staff one. Basically, as I explained last month, the changing of the wording dealt with that we can no longer ask for criminal records and that before you get through the first selection process and hiring and that. So, and that's really why the change was brought about here. On the next one, on the suicide awareness, this was a new policy, basically that all schools will need to provide 1 hour of in-service to staff members in relation to suicide awareness. I need to correct myself in this. I was under the impression that this would go into force this year. It does not. Whether the administrator days goes into force not this year, but the following year. I'm hoping that the service units will take the lead on this, provide training in that needs to be done to meet the requirements of that policy. And then the emergency plans and drills, the big change on that was that they're now requiring 2 tornado drills a year. We did not have a policy with that change. We wrote a policy, go back and pick up the fire drills and those kinds of things. Oh, I'm sorry, quit too early. Last one on the addressing barriers to attendance. Remember on this one, the focus of the changes in this policy was more on working with the parents and the students to, I guess, the name of it says it, remove the barriers that they feel there might exist to attend. And I think I mentioned at the beginning earlier about the importance of attendance, and it is important to have those children in school. And trying to find ways to, if a student is missing a lot of school, work with them, work with their parents to get them in school so that we can help them. So it focuses more on that rather than, okay, you miss X number of days, we're gonna contact the county attorney. It's not gonna be as easy to do, but probably just, a different way to approach it. Also, if you makes a motion to accept all of these, suicide awareness one, I put the wrong number there. It's 504.23, the correct number's up above. I made an error, got to change it at that point, so.
Okay, the motion on these 5. I'll move to approve second reading of the following board policies as they're listed.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded to approve the board policies 41202, 504.23, 508.05, 503.04. Roll call. Bob?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
Vicki?
Yes?
Alden?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Next item is to approve the hiring of Jamie Sehighs as a teacher.
After a long and laborious process, we did come up with getting a chance to interview a person and offered them a contract, and they have accepted. We did work it out with Osmond. We will hold the contract on Jamie, basically a 3/4 time position. Osmond will, we will work with them. Basically, they will have half of that time, so we're really looking at 0.375 FTE for each school district is what we're looking at. And we will pay her, it will include her, her salary or her insurance benefits, retirement, all of that, and then Osmond will reimburse us for half of that amount. So, and the schedule worked out pretty good in that she will be here second period of the day for, I think it's high school chorus, and then 7th period of the day would be junior high chorus, and then in between, she will go over to Osmond, do elementary over there, and then we'll work in her lunchtime and some prep time and that, so that she gets that. So she'll be here for she's contracted from 2nd to 7th period is what she's contracted for.
So essentially, she's gonna be 3 periods.
Should be here 3 periods.
But she'll be here 2 with trying to work in, share some time for lunch and travel time and that kind of things.
And wherever she chooses to do her plan, could be here, could be there.
As far as contest, are we in the same district, or is that gonna be a,
We have moved. That was, this spring it was announced. They changed up all of our report site. And we go to Hardington this year. But that won't affect where Osmond goes because she's only doing K-6 there, and they don't do
Okay.
contests.
Okay,
She's elementary, that won't affect that.
okay, I didn't know what she was doing in Osmond. Okay, good. It's nice to share with Osmond, foot in the door there, but
I
it's
think it's a
make it work.
Step towards trying to make something work.
Absolutely. Make it work, make it work good. Make it work well.
It's not an English teacher.
That's right.
So there's one high school and one junior high class, and that's
What
it.
she'll be teaching in 2 periods, basically. The time we work in, prep periods, lunchtime, so that she, between the 2 districts. She'll, I don't know what all she's teaching as far as the elementary, it's all their elementary, different, it'll be different. It won't be all of them every day they're working, but
Should be doing our whole high school.
she's doing our high school chorus and our junior high.
So then how does she plan for contests or individual, are we not having groups, or we're not?
We will, what we've talked about with that is when they start practicing for contests and, concerts, we'll work with her, like if she wanted to come in and do some things in the morning, we'll work out something where we're paying her in addition for that time. But that would be basically for us, not Austin, as part of that, though. That'd be more towards our extra duty. She is receiving extra duty pay, to do the high school part of it.
Does that work for the kids?
Well, that
Well,
part
they
wouldn't
do
be any
swing bar
different than
Tuesday
we do it
morning.
now, if they come in before school or come in early and do it. Or if she stayed after school and worked with them, we'll work something out with her time-wise.
So she'd have to come in before school, and then she'd have a period off, and then she would teach a period, because she doesn't have any.
Yeah. But we'll end up, working something out, she's paid for that time that she's coming in, some of that.
So.
I just want to clear up the contest discussion. We've never had contest prep during the school day. Because I want this to work out, I think this is an awesome situation for us. So I want to explain that we've never been able to do, I've never been able to have a trombone trio come see me during the 4th block and work on stuff. It's always been before or after school. So we're not gaining or losing anything by her being in Osmond, except for the fact that we have somebody happily employed. So, she'll have to work with the groups before and after school, the same way I do. That's what I do as well.
Who's happily employed?
Is that gonna be you, or is it?
Hopefully both of them.
Do you think I'm not happily employed?
We were just wondering who that was.
Both of us.
So I hope we really make this work, make them feel welcome,
So she's gonna have to travel twice? We don't have her 2 periods in a row.
No, she comes
So
here.
She comes here.
She's
they
coming
go
to
to Osmond, they
me,
go
she will go to Osmond, she'll teach a class here, she will go to Osmond, do the elementary, then she will come back here for that afternoon class, and then she will go back to
She's
school.
gonna live in Ely.
Yeah, she lives in Ely.
So that's the best way to do it for her.
Does she get travel compensation?
We'll pay mileage, we'll split the mileage on it.
Not from Neely to here.
No,
No,
Neely's
no,
here.
between
Yeah.
For going over there, yes.
but that, they've done that forever. I remember Mrs. Backer went back and forth. Once they had that school, they did.
Unless they drive to school.
So she'll do swing choir, and she'll do that when?
Tuesday
morning
mornings.
or
Tuesday,
before school?
Yep, like it's always been.
Okay.
And we'll get more details, tryouts and all those wonderful things on it.
Any other discussion?
I'll make the motion to approve Jamie Seahine as local music teacher for the 2014-15 school year at 3/4 time.
No, sorry.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the hire of a new local teacher. Roll call, Alden,
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Vicky.
Yes.
Marilyn.
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
Myself, yes. The next item is to approve the extra duty assignments.
And there's one thing, in my hurrying to get around to leave, I asked Mrs. Novicki to get a copy of this. I think one thing that didn't get changed on it was the vocal music, it still has Mrs. Hans.
Oh, sorry,
Mrs.
Mrs.
Hans, so.
Sorry.
I didn't look real close at it, but I did catch that, so I glanced through it. No.
I even had it out today.
And I'm not blaming you for it, I happened to catch that, so.
Even looking at it today.
questions on this?
Where is that junior high cross country?
Yeah,
That's it?
well, whoever wants to go.
Do they just practice with the varsity? No, they don't practice during the school. So then,
Take 'em with them.
basically, is Mr. Frederick still gonna be the assistant cross-country coach? They'll still be all practicing the same thing. Is it your name on here for junior high?
Did it again.
News to me.
Surprise!
That's just his exercise period.
Junior's supposed to catch all that stuff.
Oh, dear.
And I can't spell Mr. Holloway's name to save my life.
So we're.
Keep asking questions, what else we missed?
Okay, so that's junior, that's, oh, cross country.
Thanks for donating your time.
I'm asking you, who you said, I'm sorry.
Mr. Holt. He's a cross-country runner.
I was gonna say, okay.
So we can get rid of the golf cart?
To chase him around, I'm not sure.
Okay. Any other changes? When do we take a look at the driver's education position? Is that just an automatic thing, or does somebody get certified to do that, or how does that work?
You have to be certified to do it.
Yeah, you've gotta be certified through, the,
Department of
the driver's thing, get somebody that's certified, teach it. I know my experience past, and I've been a lot of those people that are around
Yeah.
there, around to do that, so. But they have to approve, they approve where you drive on your test route, they come out and approve, different things. Check your records, make sure you're keeping them right, so there's a lot of, it's not just, who wants to teach drivers, they have that kind of thing, a lot more to it, so.
Yeah, right, anybody showing any interest in it, so if Mr. Tassmeyer ever quits,
Yeah. Might start doing that.
You don't have anybody else?
I don't think we have anyone else in staff that is trained.
I'm gonna get my semi going back and forth to the
I make a motion, we approve the extra duty assignments.
I'll second.
With the changes.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the extra duty assignments, for the changes made. Roll call. Bob?
Yeah.
Marilyn? Myself, yes. Vicki?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And Oliver.
Yes.
Sponsorship of teammates program.
I'll move to donate $500 to the teammates.
Did you wanna say something?
I think Janice-
Okay. Janice is here, so we'll
If
let
you
her
can
say
pass
it.
that motion first,
You
that's.
don't wanna talk anymore.
You approve.
Yeah.
She's halfway here.
I didn't hear a second.
I'll second.
Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I appreciate you giving your financial support. You've done that for the last several years, and we do appreciate that a lot. So then when we go out and try to raise money, we can say it's for scholarships, and it honestly is for scholarships, because it costs to run a program, and that helps with our costs, so we do appreciate it. Also appreciate you letting me take a little bit of time on your agenda, because I know you've got lots of weighty things, so maybe this will be a little bit lighter. Anyway, Teammates has been in existence for 10 years now. We are now starting our 11th year, and we're going strong, and we're very happy with our program. We've got 25 mentors and mentees right now. We had 31 at the end of last year, but with graduation, and some moved away and stuff like that. So we're now to 25, but we're building. So I'm going to pass out some dashboard indicators. This is what I got at our leadership training meeting that we had in Lincoln last week. And I'd like you to look at the top. Mr. Allday talked about how important it was for the kids to be here at school. I ran off the whole page with the top that I'd like you to pay attention to or to look at. The rest is just the hours and stuff. But 2013, 2014, we were 100% in all three categories. Academic, now this would be with our mentees. academic performance improvements, so they've all improved their grades. Fewer disciplinary referrals, 100%, and fewer unexcused absences. So, you know, we haven't been 100% across the board, but this past year we were. So I think that's something to celebrate. That's pretty cool. And then also, I've got a sheet and then the mentors and mentees have, they take surveys, and I just thought this one mentee comment, it just means the world. He or she, I don't know who it was, wrote, in class I don't have a lot of friends. When I'm with my mentor, I have a huge best friend. So I thought that was just really cool. So that kind of shows what our program is all about, to give the kids a little extra encouragement, a hand up and stuff like that. And if you look at the back, I wrote the mentors and mentees that we have for next year. Vicki, I took a little bit of liberty with you because she's just now finishing her application, but these are we have some mentors that are waiting to be matched. So, and we'll be recruiting the mentees when school starts and everything. So anyway, that's just for your information, because we don't really publish those lists or anything, but that's who we have on deck for this next year. And then I also have Joan Alexander here, who is one of our mentors, and she brought Cole, who is one of our mentees. He didn't know he was coming till like 3 minutes ago. But here he is. So I just wondered if you wanted to say a little bit about what having a mentor means to you, or is something that you guys do that's fun. I know that Joan is really good about showing up at school and stuff, so whoever wants to talk first, if you want to just say a little bit.
Wow.
You can stand up too, Cole.
You did the wrong thing, you asked me to talk.
Oh.
Anyway,
I told him I'd just take a few minutes now. So.
Right. No, thank you to the school board for letting us to have this program. It's allowed me to have another good friend in school, and because of Cole, then now I know, I don't have kids in school anymore, so I don't know the kids, but because of Cole, I'm getting to know more and more kids again. And we have had some good times inside of school and outside. We try to get together. But yeah, it means the world to me to have this friendship.
I like it also because I have somebody to talk to, you know, if like I have nobody else to talk to and stuff. And she helps me with like my homework and stuff too. So
She's a good friend. Yeah. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you guys.
And thank you for financial and your other type of interest too, so we appreciate that.
Did you accept my motion then from the start? Okay. And I'll just say, I mean, I just applaud Janice for.
Yes, thank you, Janice.
The program was started.
I had lots and lots of help.
Well, you've done an excellent job, because I was one of the almost doubters or naysayers when we were on the board. I thought, oh, another program that we're gonna have to be responsible for and make, but I mean, obviously, if you put the right person in charge, it works. And again, she's done an excellent job. Thanks, all the other mentors and who was working with them on the list here. I mean, a lot of people have gotten active, and it is a big deal. Like you said, Joan, it gets you back into the school building. Otherwise, you might not be in there. And I've been down in the lunchroom several times with my kids, seeing these other, what are they doing? Well, they're there with their mentor, you know. And it's, so it does. It makes the school way more visible. And so, no, thanks, Janice. Anyway, a motion is made.
Motion's been moved and seconded to sponsor the teenage program. Roll call. Alden?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Vicki?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Bob?
Yeah.
Myself, yes. Next item is the NASB Board of Directors nomination.
I think all of you received probably information on this. Anybody interested in volunteering to run for that election? If not, we'll table it. But I thought we needed to put it on.
Okay. Reports. Yeah.
She wanted to say,
Oh.
this, no big deal.
I don't know, she's probably almost done now. Just Corey, because
Okay.
he usually doesn't talk very long.
Okay. Activities Director's report. Corey. Mr. Frederick.
back on cross country.
He's back there.
Not a whole lot more than what I put in the report. Girls golf, I think, has around 10, 11 girls out. I was not able to get a hold of Blake to find out how many boys had gone out for basketball, football, skipping the whole season. Well, just say it. Okay, 30. Don't give me hand signals, I don't understand.
30.
I will say this about all the coaches, because girls golf, or volleyball and cross-country start Monday. The girls are doing conditioning and stuff, but official practice won't start until next week. But talking with the coaches over the summer, just the last few days or whatever, I don't care if they've coached 1 year just coming in or if they've coached 20 years. I have some coaches that are excited about getting going. The kids seem excited, the coaches are excited. That's a huge turnaround, I think, than a few years ago when everybody was kind of down in the dumps. Will they be 100% successful? No. And the coaches know that. But they don't care. If they make a small gain, they're thrilled. And that small gain might be scoring more points than they did last year. Maybe it's winning more games. I've got coaches that are, oh, we want to try this, we want to try that. I haven't seen that for a long time. So we've got a tremendous amount. I mean, that's not, I shouldn't just say sports. That's music and all the activities. So I am very excited about what's going to happen and see where the programs go this year.
Good. Are you taking credit for it all then?
No,
Activity
it's not,
director.
nothing with me,
That's
so.
Since he's not cross country.
I know.
No, I can't take credit for that.
Do we
so.
know how many cross-country kids or volleyball kids, you know?
At one time, she was thinking there was gonna be around 28 for volleyball. Cross country could be anywhere from 3 to 5. Or 4 to 6 maybe. I forgot Rosemary will be a freshman.
Any report on the scoreboards and the facility and everything ready to roll, or?
I think, they,
He didn't email me back today, but scoreboards are supposed to be done Thursday.
Good.
Any other questions from, thank you, Mr. Frederick? Okay, principal's reports.
This fun little radar chart that you're going to get a copy of, I was pretty excited about this, so I really don't need to tell you a whole lot about the NISA reading. The reading, math, and science, I can see already. They came out in July. We did quite well on those, very impressed. We will never make public 8 and 11 writing because there was a mess up with the state. I can see them, the kids will get a copy of it, but nobody else will see that unless the kids run around and tell people how they did. We were not one of the schools that had any issues, but I guess some did, and it was moving, I think I told you this before, it was moving words, and some kids were having a tough time doing things. It was deleting stuff that they were writing. So we were not going to see those, only 4th grade. This I picked up at the ESU when I went to a meeting there this week. It was towards the end of the week, so it didn't get in your packet. But if you can take this home and look at this, if you notice, we have our all-time best in every single area. Our reading percentage, and we're almost top in every single school in the ESU. And in fact, overall, I'm not the greatest math person, but I think overall we were probably one of the top schools in this ESU for our scores and things. And so I thought I did it in color so that you could actually see where we were at. But we hit our all-time best in reading, math, and science for proficiency, and then it shows you how we compare over the years with other ESU. So I was kind of excited about that. A lot more than you were.
Well, I know the teachers have worked really hard, and kudos to them for.
Absolutely. And so don't share this information, this is tomorrow. So don't get it to them, I haven't let them see it yet.
I'm gonna run
It's
around.
my opening for tomorrow. Let's see, teacher in service actually starts tomorrow morning. We did class registration the end of July. Most students have registered, except one took her time and decided to switch again, so I have to get that in. But all of that stuff is done, they have their schedules, they went through them, and then we flip-flopped a couple of things for some of them. You have a copy of their schedules in your packets. I think the buildings look great. The janitorial staff has done a really nice job of getting the facilities ready. The one thing I think people don't understand what they face when they come in here is there are people in this building. I mean, I remember when I was in school, you didn't see anything. School was the forbidden zone in the summer, you just couldn't go there. There's people in and out here all the time, teachers. So, I mean, they have put in weeks already. I know some of those people have put in probably 3 or 4 weeks in their classroom trying to get ready. And they might be the new teachers, but there's also some veteran staff members that have been here, so. National FCCLA, Paige and Trey Lynn, returned from San Antonio with a silver and a bronze. And like I said, the band, dance team has been here. They went off on a trip to Norfolk to learn to dance or something and then get critiqued on it. FCCLA have been here, FFA's had their meetings, so I think we're ready to go. And if not,
Is the mood pretty good about the 8-period day?
I've not heard one thing about the 8-period day.
Good or bad or indifferent?
No.
Give it a couple days.
Yeah.
Well, it was funny because some of the kids that said, oh, I hate the 8-period day. I said, how do you know you've never had the 8-period day? Oh, yeah, and then the junior high kid said, I'm gonna hate the 8-period day, and so she had last year.
Yeah.
Oh. So I have not really heard much of anything.
Oh, something different.
There was a study hall every period except one in the day because nobody signed up for one, so. We're gonna create one if we didn't need one, and it's probably because there's period after period of electives, so.
Have we had anybody asked, work study, like seniors or whatever?
We did have one ask, but they wanted to do it in the morning, and that's not gonna fly. And they wanted to work with their parents, and that's not an option either. Because according to what I have seen in documentation, they cannot work for their parents.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mrs. Levicki? Okay, comes to my turn here. Just want to welcome the staff back, you know, like Mrs. Novicki said, I walked through the building last week, both buildings, and I saw several of the teachers already in the classrooms, had been working. Appreciate that, you know, they don't have to be by their contract being there for, you know, then, but most all of them do, and we appreciate that extra effort, and it shows in obviously our chess scores and stuff. I also want to make a comment on the band camp. I know the weather wasn't great as far as getting to March, but I talked to probably about 6 or 7 junior high kids, and they absolutely loved it. They got a chance to play more, play with the, you know, older kids, and, you know, that's a big plus that for them to see, have that opportunity, and so, you know, kudos to Mrs. Hahn for doing that. Also want to comment, I think Alden made a comment about this earlier, but, you know, we've talked about sharing and looking at 5 school thing, and, as a board, and we've instructed Mr. Alt to do that, and, for years, I mean, I can remember when I first got on, they were talking about sharing and things, so, you know, Mr. Alt's just doing his job and helping us out, getting all the information that we need, so I appreciate that work. And I guess that's about all for me. You are.
I'll just one little cosmetic
Okay.
thing. I don't know, the guy that paints the flagpoles, I think he came around periodically. I haven't changed him in
I have not heard from him this year. I'm wondering,
It's been a year or 2, I think,
yeah,
since he.
yeah, I'm wondering if he has retired.
there. Well,
'Cause he was getting up there in age.
I know he just automatically came around there with a couple of trees that did it, but it's just the 2 of them. They both need attention. Yeah, and, you know, if there's no painters left out there, then I suppose you could look at those. It would cost us a little bit, but you go to those. Those of them are
telescope either, so.
So, I just had them walk by, again, cosmetically, they need attention. I'd like to see our light poles done, but that's by the city out there. Just a couple little cosmetic things, but somebody could mention that to the city, maybe the poles could use a nice.
Yeah. The light pole, while you're at it, throw some other flag.
Yeah, yeah, do the flag poles, right, do the flag
Since you're up there on your
poles.
lift truck.
I'm not asking for all new steps, but just, you know, how it is, just, especially on the flag poles, obviously. But like I said, that guy automatically just came around, and took care of it, so.
It's kinda cool to watch them shimmy up there.
I never got to watch him, but I know they said.
Have a lift or anything, you just.
Not the ones I saw, they shimmy up there and they start painting on top and then they go down and do the whole thing, it's pretty cool.
He was not a
They
young
can really-
guy either.
That's the impression I always had, I never got to watch him, but I know it was a good deal for us, but I just see that it hasn't been done, so. But another thing for Mr. Alt to check into, I guess. So that's the only other.
All right, my report then, I know, we were at Wausau, I think Mike and I remember walking through the kitchen, we asked about the air conditioners they had there. I visited a little bit with their superintendent, he gave me a name, it was, actually it's their Carlson Home and Autumn Incorporated there in Wausau that did their air conditioning. I called the gentleman, he came up and took a look at the band room. You know, we kind of went through this last year with trying to do something in there, and our cooler thing didn't work, and we got a smaller air conditioner. I looked at this, and he ended up getting me a bid for it. It would be kind of complex, I shouldn't say complex, but kind of involved what he did, and I was a little surprised the bid came back a little over $15,000, so it was a lot more than what I thought it was gonna be, so that's something maybe we're gonna have to, think about and discuss a little bit, because I know Ed Leon looking at that a little bit a couple of years ago with Rasmussen's, and I think they could, and I don't have it anymore, but in my mind, I think they talked about doing the band room and maybe the shop area for the percentage around 16,000, if I remember correct, so we're gonna have to go back and revisit that a little bit, the price, so.
I was thinking the units that he was talking about in Wausau were only like 5,000 for the unit, wasn't it?
Well, it's something about they had to do booster units to get that big of room, to get the air out there,
A lot of
there, so
electrical.
just wall units, and I don't know, with our walls, what they would've had done, to get rid of it, so. Anyhow, that's kinda where that's at right now. The elementary cabinets, they've been working on that, they're not in yet, but they haven't made, they had to special make them. I think, Gail said today, they came and took a look at the doors and trying to match the stain. We also run into, I think last month I told you about, we had an issue with the asbestos. I think we're able to get around that, but another issue they run into, I think with two of the cabinets, was the drains don't go into the floor, they go into the wall. Therefore, the sink can only go down so far, so they're looking at special ordering sinks. So when they get ready, I mean, we'll get them in, they're just, we're close, we just haven't got them done.
I see the preschool room, they had their doors on, but kindergarten does not.
And as far as the doors, Mr. Earhart in the class, you know, they were gonna do those. I think they'll come back and do some more things with that, but on
I
those,
hope so.
oh, yeah, on those
Mrs.
cabinets,
Jensen.
because he's got the doors in the shop.
I know, I was sitting there today, I see she has a toilet in the closet that I'm sure they used, but they haven't used it for years in her classroom.
I thought they could use that one in the classroom.
Mm-mm. So it must not work or something. Because she said she's asked for years to have it removed because it's taken up space that she could use for storage. And I'm kind of wondering
Never said
if we're not
anything
going to use
about
it.
so.
Maybe she told
I-
Yeah, check that, look, you can look in there.
I know there's
tomorrow.
one there.
Yeah,
didn't
they don't
know
use it
it
because there was
was
stuff
used.
piled yay high on
Okay.
it. So if they're not gonna use it, I mean, that's valuable storage room, I'm sure.
What grade is it?
Kindergarten.
The Target gym, the floor in there, the gentleman called me today, and they will deliver the wood and stuff on, I think he said August 25th. I asked him about the timing thing, because, he originally was talking about 10 days to let that cure out. He says they can evidently test the moisture content in that wood somehow. He doesn't think they'll have to wait that long, so I think when they get here, it won't be long, they'll start with the subfloor, they can get started with that, get that in, and then they'll get that wood, get it down as soon as they can, so. I mean, we're gonna be out of there probably for a couple of weeks anyway, but it'll be August 25th is our target date right now to get started. We already talked, I think, the replacement of the shingles on the sheds because of the bills. I added this, thank Mrs. Novicki, when I was gone in Boston, she interviewed on the pairs, and we've hired Sarah Shalowski, I hope I pronounced that right, and Rachel Stoll as pairs, so they will be joining our staff. And the assistant custodian, we will be interviewing for that. I run an ad in that again this last week. We'll need to get that done. I think Bart, he talked to me today, he is wanting to finish up this week. He's been very good about working until we can get somebody, but we need to get somebody in here. And again, with being gone last week, it didn't help very much with that. We will get that taken care of.
You have some application, or some people apply for it?
We've got 3 apps. I think somebody mentioned something tonight about an application, so. Imogene, did you contact everybody about the picnic?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got all their answers.
And Vicki, Krista, and Mike, we will need probably to schedule a budget committee meeting sometime. Might check the calendars, maybe the last week in August. I didn't look at the calendar. I don't know what our board meeting is. Want to have that before we send the information. We have to send it out. We have to send it to the paper, so maybe the last week in
September
August, or
8th,
maybe
September.
early that first week in September. We'll need to have that, get something scheduled. Is there any nights, days that don't, won't work? You know?
Wednesday doesn't for me. Well, it would later on, I just got banner board, but that would be earlier. Should be fun.
So some evening that week. I think we're looking probably at that Wednesday night, maybe for the crate, we go over crates for that committee
True.
meeting, so that's some night other than Wednesday night.
Yeah, maybe not 2 nights in a row, just in case I'm trying to get something done. So if we can do it before we
We're
went.
ready for it, yeah, so.
Can we meet before the meeting, before we go over there? Just come in a half hour
Possibly
earlier?
that might be it.
For all,
I could do that.
we do it.
Maybe the same night as that. Okay, and that was everything I think I had, unless you got some questions.
So how are you gonna tear the old floor up? Janitor's gonna do that, or are these people gonna do it?
Yeah, we'll tear it up and get it out of there and clean the old tartan floor the best we can. I think Gail will probably go over that with the machine and, clean it up pretty well, because there's a lot of dirt, gravel with sand and stuff. When you pick that up, it is dirty, because I picked up a couple of pieces about the size of these tables would be, you pull it out of there and there's a lot of grit and grime, just dust and dirt from the years.
So back to these elementary cabinets, any idea what a target date is to get them done, or?
We gotta get, talk to Gail again, they had to order narrow sinks.
Right.
Not
Shallow.
deep, narrow, so like we're shallower, maybe the
There you
other
go.
word. Get those, I think they're about ready. I think, like I said, they've got the cabinets made, just a matter, I think they have to stain them yet, and then if we can get those sinks here, I think they'll be ready to install. I don't think it'll take long.
And the countertops, would we,
They'll
And
be doing,
backsplash, it's all-
I think they're doing, what I wanna say, what's the stuff? you put on?
laminate? No?
Formica type thing.
Like a laminate or something across the top, and then that also in the backsplash, I think is what we talked about doing.
Okay.
When's he gonna remove that?
I think Gail is gonna remove them. When they get ready to come and do it, then we'll remove it, so we're ready to put the new ones in, so we don't have it torn
It's
up.
all.
And whether they'll try to do it on a weekend or what, I'm not too sure. Or work on one, at a night, so they can get it, tear it out, get the new one maybe stuck in there, or at least not, so we're not bothering the kids
Yeah,
at school.
right,
sure.
But we'll get it done as quickly as we can.
Are you planning on putting in new doors to the classrooms?
Doing what?
New doors to the classrooms?
Not this year. At some point, that's probably something we will need to look at.
We need them?
We need to look at the locks on them.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big issues with all the safety with
Yeah.
the intruders and what have you.
Right.
They don't have locks, is what the problem is?
They do, but once the door's locked, it's locked, you can't get in it easily unless you disturb the class and have them come open the door for you to come in. Does that make sense?
Well, I
It
mean,
would be ideal
if
to
the-
have them locked from the
Right.
inside.
There you go, locked from inside instead of the outside.
Can't you just put new hardware on them to make them do that?
That could probably be
Yeah.
done, yeah, that way.
So let's do it.
We've talked about that.
Made sense to me.
We all knew what you were talking about.
So is that something we need to get going? I mean, get new hardware? I mean,
We can take a look at it, I mean, I don't think just replacing the locks on it would be a big deal to do that.
I mean, if
The only
that's-
thing
if
is
the
that
doors
getting
are-
it- getting
if the
it
doors are
rekeyed-
fine.
Rekeyed with what we have, unless it's a whole new key, I mean, a whole different set of key structures. And we just had those rekeyed, to get them rekeyed the same, would be a little more involved, you know, so we're consistent with having with the masters and that, but we can look at it.
okay.
Gotta be careful of overloading our janitors too, unless we hire someone to kind of do it all, you know.
Well, if we did that, we would probably bring in the locksmith
Yeah.
to do that.
I also, when I was in elementary today and I talked to several of the teachers, I'd asked them if, I was talking to a teacher from out of town and all the elementary rooms had their own personal iPads. And they really used them spare time with the kids and they just felt it was a great helper in teaching these kids with technology and stuff. And so I asked them, they said, Tom told them they had access to the iPads. But I felt if each teacher had their own, and Patty says they can have their own 24/7, put their own apps on it, because it's hard to turn it back in if you've got your own apps on it and then somebody else checks it out. So I just felt if they could have it, and I didn't know if there was money in the budget, I mean, $300 for a teacher who wants it in their classroom, I didn't feel was above and beyond maybe
And
what we
I
could do.
did talk to Tom again, and he said that he's told them several times as well, go get one, show me what apps you want.
Yeah, I don't think that they got it, that they could keep it in their classroom all the time.
They're not using them as much as I think people.
So if
thought
they
were
can do
going
that,
to.
I mean, we just
He
gotta
said
make
he
that
had
known
them.
that they can keep them in their
Talk on
classroom all the
Friday
time.
meeting.
That'd be great. Awesome.
Anything else? Okay, with that, we are adjourned.
See what it-